Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Fender. I am Development Director at TWC. You are hopefully listening to this on your way to or from the Unitas conference in Liverpool. I am joined by Nick Blake. Nick is one of the founding partners of Mealtrak, and we're here today to talk to you for only 12 or 14 minutes or so about trends in out-of-home eating, food service, food to go, and all of the above. But first up, let me introduce you to Nick. Nick, hello, how are you today?
Good, thank you, and hi, everybody.
Nick, do you want to give a little introduction to Mealtrak and tell everybody what it's all about?
Yeah, by all means. So just very briefly then, we launched Mealtrak about 8 years ago, really in response to working with a number of clients who identified a real gap in the market for good quality, robust data on eating out of the home. So Mealtrak is a large, ongoing consumer panel whereby we interview 36,500 consumers a year across every day of the year, monitoring all of their out-of-home food and drink consumption. So that's both food to go in the conventional sense and also eating out in pubs and restaurants and so on. So the panel delivers sort of core market data and insights across those two key areas. And as I say, we have the benefit now of trend data over that 8 years or so. And in particular, we've obviously monitored very closely the changes, the enormous changes which have been going on during COVID and since. So that means we're in a good position, I think, to provide some useful insights going forward, which can help you sort of target and develop your own portfolios.
Perfect, absolutely spot on. And TWC are delighted to be Mealtrak's commercial partners and have been for about 9 or 10 months now. Nick, let's just start with a few headlines. Kind of what is going on in food service out of home eating at the moment? Give us some headlines right now.
Okay, yeah, happy to do that. So, I mean, it doesn't need me to tell any of you that food to go has been and is indeed still facing some challenging times and hard on the heels of COVID, which obviously, devastated the market as a whole, particularly in the eating out area. But hard on the heels of that, we've got the impact of ingredients inflation, energy costs, cost of living crisis, distribution issues, and so on. So not easy for anyone. It is tough. But I think the really key thing from our point of view, there are still opportunities out there. And I think if one thing we can get across today is that if you're focused, if you identify where they are, you target them relentlessly, there are opportunities out there. But in terms of just setting the scene for that, where are we right now? So this is our Mealtrak data as of 23rd of January, so just in the last month or so. Essentially where we are is the picture on a year-on-year basis is still looking pretty good. We've not recovered to pre-COVID levels, but the market is up by around sort of 15% year-on-year, although if we look at the last 3 months, we are seeing the impact of the cost of living issues coming through there. So we're down overall in out-of-home about 5% over that quarter to the end of January, with slightly greater decline in food on the go than in eating out. Although we may see that reverse as we move through the year if consumers are sort of trading down rather in terms of spend a little bit, then it may be that we'll see some switching from eating out to food to go, so more of an equalisation. So initially, food to go recovered faster than eating out. Over the last year, it's been the other way around, but we may see a little bit of a switch back the other way again as we move through this year as consumers try and manage their spend.
And thank you. That's a great introduction. What's happening with things like missions? Why consumers are purchasing food out of the home? What can you see on that?
Again, really interesting. I think, just picking up on sort of 2 or 3 of the key trends, I'll start with missions. Very interesting what's happened there. So historically, missions have tended to be quite stable, and we've not seen dramatic shifts. But actually, over the last 2 or 3 years, we have seen some really quite significant shifts. So during COVID, we saw a big rise in consumer missions where purchasers were driven by the more rewarding, more indulgent food to go moment. So it was a case of if the amount I can spend or where I can spend or when I can spend is limited, I'm going to make sure I enjoy it. So we saw a big move to purchases driven by cravings, by treats, by sweet food to go, by hot food to go. So all those kind of more rewarding, more indulgent things, and less focus on things like quick and easy, the more functional, quick and easy, less expensive, that kind of thing. More recently, as you might expect, we've seen again a bit of a swing. So actually, we are seeing value come into the equation more strongly again. So things like wanting consumers saying their purchase is driven by getting something less expensive or something quick and easy and so on are rising. But still, on the other side, treats, indulgence and so on are still higher than they were. So really the story here is about balance and delivering a balanced food to go portfolio. And I think from your guys' point of view, really important that added value opportunities are at least as important as its value. So what we don't want to do is see a drive to the bottom and commoditization, and all the consumer trends are saying that shouldn't be the case. Yes, there is a proportion of the market that is going to be more driven by value, and we need to address their needs, but a bigger part of the market is actually driven in the opposite way by added value. So there are, good margin opportunities out there.
That's
the broad picture in terms of missions. A couple of other things just to highlight. I won't do in as much depth, but another really important one is health. Health has evolved. We know it's important for consumers as a purchase driver, but it's evolved quite significantly during and since COVID. So we've seen a move away from, if you like, perhaps the more prescriptive health regimes, like people saying they are vegan, which is only about 3% of consumers. So there's a lot of noise around it, and it's important. But actually, there's a more mainstream opportunity out there if you look at the people who are interested in meat reduction, in adopting plant-based options, and who are vegetarian as well as those who are vegan. So if you can target opportunities to that group, you're talking about 15, 16% of consumers as opposed to vegans at 3%. So again, it's about how you pitch, how you target, how you communicate propositions in order to maximize the revenue opportunity for yourselves. Home delivery is another area. So delivery now about just under a third of total food to go sales. This is including fast food and QSRs, admittedly, but it's almost 1 in 3 sales. We can only see that rising, in particular, more likely to happen into the workplace. And whilst recognizing, the delivery model is a difficult one to make work financially, it's there, it's growing, we ignore it at our peril. So it's certainly something we need to factor into our thinking. And the final one, just to pick up for now, is just consumer spend patterns. So obviously we've seen the rise in working at home and so on. And in a way that's been reflected in consumer spending patterns, but in a very particular way. So we've actually seen spend shift towards the back end of the week, so Friday and the weekend. And what that implies is that actually, again, consumers are being sort of judicious about their food to go spend, and they're focusing it on the more valued eating occasions. So it's more leisure driven, more indulgent, more rewarding, and so on. So again, a different kind of opportunity than was there previously, with less importance on the working week as people are working more at home as well. So some really interesting dynamics, which I'm only just touching on, but which hopefully you can see start to open up areas of opportunity and help you, look towards portfolio development and planning for the future and so on.
Definitely. They're brilliant there, Nick. Thank you. The wholesaler members who are part of the Unitas family, they typically serve 3 different types of businesses. They might be independent retail, convenience retail, petrol forecourts. Another might be on-trade, pubs, bars, and obviously restaurants, depending on definitions, but pubs and bars definitely. And then kind of food service, which could be kind of restaurants, cafes, takeaways, coffee shops, those kind of outlets. Are there any differences by consumer behaviour in those kind of different subsectors or verticals of the food out of home eating?
Yeah, there are very differences in behaviour and differences in performance, which I'll touch on. So, again, I think the two broad themes I've identified around that core thought of delivering balance are one, that consumers are spending on rewarding, more indulgent treats as well, but the other is that they are managing their budgets more and being a bit more judicious about where they spend and what on. So they're counter trends, if you like, but we need to accept that they're both really important, but that is impacting on different channels in different ways as well. So an interesting example is, if we take a couple, if we look at the retail environment, convenience stores, if we look at the year-on-year perspective, very close parallel between convenience stores and discounters. So both of them in value terms, up broadly in line with the market, just under market level. But over the last quarter, discounters have continued to perform well and grow, whilst convenience stores have actually dropped back in sales, so down around sort of 15% or so over the last quarter. And again, I suspect that's driven by the economics and the consumer wallet. So discount is obviously a really good solution if you're trying to cut back. Convenience stores tending to be seen as a little bit more expensive. So whilst in the slightly longer term, those two performing very similarly, in the short term, convenience stores down a little bit. Similar picture, I think, in coffee shops. So again, performing slightly behind the market, so a growth of about 10% over the last year compared to the total out-of-home market at 18%, and then down again a similar amount, so down 8% over the last quarter. So again, slightly more expensive environment in which to spend, but and therefore suffering with the cost of living issues and so on. In terms of fast food, QSRs, slightly different pictures. So these were the real heroes during COVID. So as I said, so they outperformed all other channels during COVID in terms of maintaining performance to a much greater extent. But actually, over the last year, again, there's been a bit of a counterbalancing there. So fast food down about 4% over the last year, although again, it's held up over the last quarter. So again, in an environment where, offering perhaps seem to be delivering good value, those sales. So we might see, again, a bit of a move back in the other direction. And then in terms of eating out, so pubs, restaurants and so on, again, there's an interesting contrast here. So this sector was obviously hardest hit initially, much slower to recover, but has been actually the driver of growth over the last year. So it's slower to recover, but over the last year done well, with growth, up to about 50% in both restaurants and pubs. Slightly greater in pubs than restaurants, maybe a value thing again, although actually in the last quarter, pubs were down about 4%, whereas pubs were up 5%. But I do suspect that over the next 6 months or so, we might see a reversal of that again, so that again, as consumers trade down their spend a little bit, that we see that switch to sales in pubs, probably leading to pub sales outperforming restaurants in the next sort of 6 to 12 months. So some really interesting dynamics going on there, and clearly leading to different issues and opportunities. But certainly, there are some challenging trends in your sector at the moment to counter, in order to get that balance between value and added value, essentially.
Nick, if we were to do this interview 2 months ago, would I be right in thinking that we would be predicting 2023 as being a year of Armageddon? And regardless of whatever your answer is on that, how is 2023 panning out currently so far, and your predictions for 2023?
I'm not sure we'd have predicted Armageddon, because I think one of the things that's really clear, and I think one of the benefits, if you like, of seeing the data that Mealtrak delivers is that we can always see opportunities. And I think there are still lots of areas of opportunity. and were 2 months ago. But I think the picture was looking a bit bleaker, certainly. So, yes, it's not great, but no, it's not Armageddon. I think there are certainly indications that whilst we're looking at a recession, it's not going to be as deep or as long as was perhaps originally anticipated. And as I say, there are some real areas we think there are opportunities for growth in. So what will separate the winners and losers, I think, is really knowing your consumer. So some of the kind of dynamics we talked about, perhaps most obviously the missions, if those consumer missions are changing and changing quite significantly, your portfolio, your offering needs to reflect that, and you need to identify where the growth opportunities are. So, and I think so it's knowing your consumer. It's also about investing in the future. Now is not a time, I think, for standing still and wait and see what happens. You've got to be a bit more proactive. You've got to reinvigorate the food to go proposition. Keep it fresh, keep it relevant, particularly to a new generation of consumers. So more and more Gen Z consumers coming through. They don't necessarily want the same things. Understand what they do want and address those. Part of it is this point I've raised for me of delivering a balanced food to go portfolio overall to the consumer with a set of propositions which meet the broader range of needs we're seeing. In a kind of post-pandemic, economically challenged world, and with getting the value proposition right at the heart of that, both in terms of value proposition per se, i.e. price proposition, but as I say, equally important in terms of added value proposition, which actually trumps that in terms of the scale of the opportunity significantly, I think. And there are lots of opportunities, healthier, hot food to go, snacking, sharing, delivery, indulgent treats, and others, working at home. So there's lots of areas where if you're really focused, you understand what's right for the consumer and for your products, you can look to exploit opportunities which will drive genuinely and significant growth into your portfolio. So identify the right gaps and opportunities, focus relentlessly on delivering them, and there are opportunities there. So the broader picture is not great for the next 12 months. It's static at best, I think. But if you really understand your consumer and look for those opportunities, they are there, so you can drive growth.
I think that's an excellent way to end, Nick. Thank you for that. That's crammed full of information, which I know you're fond of all knowledge, but also how you convey it so well in terms of breaking it down into small little segments and understand that there are plenty of opportunities for wholesalers, customers, those are kind of the outlets, the retailers, the food service operators, and working in partnership with suppliers and the wholesalers as well. So thank you ever so much. If you're listening to this, you can hopefully you know that TWC's website, www.twcgroup.net. We have a whole page on Mealtrak, so you can find more information there. You can contact me or any of my team, and we'd be delighted to do a demonstration of Mealtrak resources and data to you all at any time. And we will be at the Liverpool convention as well. So we'll look forward to seeing you there. And thank you once again, Nick. That was wonderful and really informative. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks all. Bye now.
Hello, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that interview I did with Nick Blake, one of the founders of Mealtrak. There was some great insight and great knowledge shared by him to you all, which I hope you found useful. Clearly, there's challenges in the out-of-home food service, food-to-go market at the moment, but things are on the mend. We're back up to 15%, 18% growth year on year. While there is obviously a focus on value and price, I thought it was interesting that there is as much, if not more, focus on value add rather than price and value. I think that health and healthier and healthy eating is clearly here to stay and to grow in importance, but also kind of wider culinary trends, things like meat production, plant-based options, vegetarian, which as well as vegan, which in combined is about 16% of the market, is again very interesting. Home delivery counts for about a third of sales. Hard to make it work, yes. Financially, yes, but here to stay.
I thought it was great that Nick went into some of the opportunities by sub-channel, by convenience, by pubs and bars, by restaurants, by cafes, takeaways. And I think the onus now is on wholesalers and suppliers to work and identify what those opportunities are by channel or by mission or by consumer group to really focus on that, to win business. And the other stuff, changing consumer habits. We're now not going into the office as much. We're working from home. What that's doing is shifting those kind of indulgent purchases towards the back end of the week and the weekends. That's becoming more important. So I think it was a really good summary. I hope we got value from it. Clearly, what the onus now is on everybody to really understand, identify who their customer target is, keep investing in that. I think his point was don't stand still, and keep a balanced portfolio of products in terms of value and value add is going to be critical. I wish you all the very best. Good day.